The command deck of the flagship Dominatus was silent. Not the disciplined silence of an efficient crew, but the suffocating kind. The kind that fills a room right before all hell breaks loose. Grand Strategist Harlon stood stiff at the central holotable, eyes locked on the swirling blue display. One blinking red dot moved steadily towards the heart of the Empire's protected zone. It had no transponder signal, no IFF code, no registry, no escort, just one ship. "What the hell is that?" Harlan muttered, jaw clenching. The young sensor tech beside him paled, voice dry as ash. "Sir, that vessel is already inside our territory. No registered vessel, no authorization, no warning." Harlan snapped. He turned to Admiral Kairos, whose face had gone stone cold. "This is a declaration." The bridge lights dimmed, alarms shifting into silent alert mode. The Empire hadn't had an unauthorized border breach in over a century, not since the Unification Wars, and no one violated core space. Not pirates, not smugglers, not rebels. Only one race had ever tried, and that was supposed to be over. "Where's the point of origin?" Harlan barked. "Tracking now, sir. No hyperspace signature." Another officer replied. It just appeared from dark space. Dark space, the dead zones beyond explored territory, black voids that no sane species entered, least of all one without backup. Harlan stared at the lonely blip again, his stomach churning. Something didn't make sense. If it was a suicide mission, it would have opened fire already. If it was a scout, it wouldn't have come in so deep. Then the tech screen flared. "New data, sir." "What?" "It's human." The room froze. Admiral Kiros's voice was iron. "That's not possible." "It's broadcasting an Earth signature," the tech insisted, voice breaking. "Old Earth, pre-Federation, early 21st century encryption key, reconfigured into something I've never seen." No one spoke. Harlan remembered the stories, rumors, really, of the last war against Earth, of how the Council had supposedly brought them into the fold. The propaganda made it look like diplomacy. But men like Harlan knew the truth. The Earth War hadn't ended. It had just gone quiet. Kairos took a step toward the window, looking out at the stars like they were starting to rearrange themselves. "What's the ship's profile?" "Frigate class, maybe destroyer. Old design, modded, patched together from Federation junk and something else. Maybe theirs." The air on the bridge grew thin. Everyone understood the unspoken truth. No one scraps Federation war tech. You either buy it from a Council shipyard or you steal it in pieces off a battlefield. Either way, this was someone who knew how to fight and survive. Harlan leaned forward. "Put it through. Broadcast an open hail. Let's hear who's insane enough to fly into the heart of the Empire alone." The speakers hissed. Then a voice came through, smooth, deep, and unmistakably human. "You won't find my name on your records. You won't trace my ship's build. What matters is, I'm back, and I haven't forgotten what your Empire did to Earth's last defenders." The voice paused, cold steel beneath the calm. "You erased us. Or so you thought. But some of us, we learned to survive in your shadows." A cold chill crept through Harlan's spine. This wasn't a rebel. This wasn't a lost son of Earth looking for peace. This was a ghost. And now it was inside the walls of the Empire. The silence on the bridge was fractured only by the low hum of the systems, the kind of silence that demanded respect or bred fear, sometimes both. Harlan's face remained stoic, but inside his pulse kicked like a war drum. A ghost ship from Earth? Impossible, or so he had believed. Admiral Kiros finally spoke, his voice quiet but filled with unmistakable tension. "Trace the signal origin. Now." The text scrambled. The voice hadn't even given a name, not a hint of identity beyond rage and memory. The kind of voice a soldier would carry after burying comrades under alien soil and being forgotten by history. "Sir," the comms officer said, brows furrowed, "it's a ghost signal. No source. It bounced between 20 of our own relay satellites. It's like he's inside the network." Harlan narrowed his eyes. "That ship breached our territory and hijacked our communications relay?" The officer nodded, terrified. "Yes, sir." It was more than a threat. It was a statement. This wasn't just some mad veteran with a rigged ship and a death wish. This was someone who had prepared. For years, maybe decades. Someone who knew Imperial tech and how to rip it apart from the inside. Kairos's jaw twitched. "What's the vessel's current heading?" "Toward Vega Prime. Straight shot to the inner colonies." Harlan snapped his gaze toward the projection. Vega Prime was no backwater. It was the administrative heart of 3 inner systems. One of the most secure, monitored planets in Imperial space. And this thing was sailing straight toward it like it belonged there. "Scramble interceptor squadrons," Harlan ordered. "Lock that ship down before it gets anywhere near Vega." Kairos nodded, but the look in his eyes was grim. If he's broadcasting on old Earth code, that means he's calling out to someone. Maybe something. The thought hung in the air like a dead man's breath. Out in the void, inside the scarred vessel without a name, the man sat quietly in his seat. The lighting inside the cockpit flickered with soft blue hues, dancing across his scarred face. The ship's systems whispered data into his neural link, each movement of his fingers like an extension of his will. They didn't know his name, and that was how he wanted it. Because to them, he didn't exist. He'd been one of the last defenders. Those words echoed in his mind like shrapnel. Earth's final resistance, the last squad that didn't kneel when the Empire scorched half the planet in retaliation for a failed uprising. His unit had been left to die in orbit, caught between collapsing colonies and cold silence. The official records listed them as vaporized. No bodies, no survivors. But he survived. Alone. The Empire hadn't considered the orbital wreckage he drifted through, or the forgotten tech he scavenged. They hadn't noticed when he hijacked a forgotten AI from a disbanded Federation drone fleet, or when he quietly tore apart their abandoned satellites piece by piece. They forgot him, but he never forgot them. The man adjusted his ship's heading. Vega Prime was crawling with fleets and defense stations, but he had no intention of making it to the surface. No, he had something better. The relay stations above Vega, the central broadcast tower, was capable of linking every system under the Empire's thumb. It was a communications nexus, a glorified monument to control. And once he was close enough, he'd inject a virus built from stolen algorithms and memories of dying friends. It would spread across the Empire like a wildfire. Every citizen, every colony, every soldier would hear the truth of what happened to Earth. They would hear the screams, the betrayals, the bodies burning. And then he would burn the tower itself. Back aboard Dominatus, Harlan watched the projection as the ship dodged the first wave of interceptors like a ghost through smoke. "They're not even scratching him," one officer shouted. "Target's using stealth tech. Gravity anchors are glitching. He's bending physics like he's cheating the laws of space." Another reported. Admiral Kairos turned toward Harlan. "You want to know who that is?" he said, voice low. "That's one of the Black Stars." Harlan blinked. "The what?" Kairos didn't look away from the projection. Unofficial name. Rumor. Urban legend. Said a group of Earth's last Special Forces units vanished during the siege. Rumor says they went dark and started killing their way back from the edges of known space. You believe that? Kairos finally turned. I do now. Harlan stared at the glowing red dot. And for the first time in his entire military career, he realized the Empire might have made a mistake they wouldn't recover from. The third wave of interceptors had already failed. Imperial vessels, state-of-the-art starfighters built for speed and overwhelming firepower, danced around the Phantom ship like children chasing a storm, and the storm did not care. It moved through them, not fast, not erratic, just certain. That's what chilled Harlan the most. He's not trying to win a dogfight. Kairos said, watching the carnage unfold on the holoscreen. He's not even trying to survive it. He's executing a plan. The ghost vessel hadn't fired a single weapon, not even a defensive volley. But 6 Imperial interceptors were already gone, lost to failed lock-ons, gravitic feedback, and systems inexplicably frying mid-maneuver. One pilot had reported seeing the ship split in two, only for it to vanish and reappear whole seconds later. He swore it wasn't cloaking. He said it was something else, something wrong. And then he died screaming. Harlan leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes narrowing. How the hell is that ship phasing through attacks? There's no tech like that. No Imperial tech. Kairos corrected. But if that's a black star, he's not using tech we know. He's using everything we left behind. Suicide weapons. Harlan whispered. Kairos nodded. Scrap ships, hybrid code, illegal AI, stuff even the Federation banned. And he's probably rigged it all with Earth's old tactics. Guerrilla war? Psychological operations? Harlan's voice dropped low. And if he makes it to Vega Prime? Kairos didn't blink. He won't stop with a message. In the cockpit, the man reached under his console and pulled out a small steel case, its surface dented, scorched, and old. The hinges clicked open, and inside rested a photo, faded, cracked, and precious. 4 men, 2 women, all in battered combat gear, laughing in a trench somewhere under Earth's blood-red sky. He tapped a finger on one of them. Daryl. Got cooked when the Empire firebombed the relay station in Nairobi. Another. Jonesy. Sniped in orbit, trying to cover evac ships. He paused on the last face. Commander Arlen. Last words were, "Don't let them forget us." His hand trembled only for a second, then went still. They had all been forgotten. The official histories wrote them off as rebellious elements neutralized. No honor, no burial, just silence. But he hadn't forgotten. He'd drifted in that silence for years, learning, waiting, until he found her, an AI left for dead on a battlefield moon, broken and angry like he was. Now she lived in his ship. She spoke in his mind. She fought beside him. She called herself Echo. "You've got 20 minutes to Vega's comm grid." Echo said inside his skull, her voice calm and clinical. "Expect increased resistance. Imperial drones just launched from orbit." He smirked. "Let 'em come." On Vega Prime, Governor Verick was red in the face, pounding his fist against the secure channel console. "What do you mean one ship has compromised half our outer defense ring?" The comms officer couldn't even look him in the eye. "Sir, he's using code we've never seen. Every system he passes starts feeding itself false data. We don't even know what's real anymore." Verick growled. "You're telling me we can't stop one ghost from Earth? Earth, a planet we burned to its crust!" The officer flinched. "Sir, we burned some of it. That's the problem." Back in the black, the Phantom ship coasted past the final perimeter gate. Its hull was a patchwork of scavenged armor and stolen energy fields, but it held strong. Even now, fighters buzzed like hornets around it, but they couldn't land a shot. Every scan came back wrong. Every lock failed. And when they got close enough, the ship whispered to them. Echo's code seeped into their systems, eroding targeting protocols, blinding sensors, and sometimes even triggering memories that weren't theirs. The AI had once been a psychological warfare program. Now she was something else, something vengeful. The man opened the final payload on his HUD. Operation Black Echo. a virus engineered from Earth's last scream, a digital plague that wouldn't just reveal the truth, it would broadcast it. Planet to planet, fleet to fleet. Every lie the Empire had buried would be dug up, its bones displayed across every screen, and it would start with Vega Prime. He keyed the final approach vector. "Echo," he muttered, voice low and cold. "You ready to burn the sky?" She responded with a soft laugh, as though relishing it. "Let's make the Empire remember what fear tastes like." The Vega Prime comm tower loomed ahead, an enormous orbital structure shaped like a black spearhead piercing the void. Thousands of satellite arms spiraled around it, relaying every Imperial signal, every coded transmission, every surveillance stream across hundreds of systems. It wasn't just communication, it was control. And that was why it had to fall. The man steadied his breath as his ship entered the outer sensor net. Echo's voice filled the cockpit, smooth and unhurried. "Auto-defense systems have locked us, but their firing thresholds are delayed. I've injected a false clearance code, courtesy of a dismantled fleet admiral's neural core." He almost laughed. "They're trusting a dead man's brain?" "Everyone trusts the uniform more than the man wearing it. I've given us 5 minutes." The ship dipped beneath the sensor sweep, skating along the edge of Vega Prime's orbital traffic. Civilian haulers and merchant vessels moved obliviously, some already rerouted by Echo's infiltration. The manned ship, invisible to them, glided through their blind spots like a shark in a crowded beach. Back aboard the Dominatus, the fourth officer shouted, "He's entering orbital range of Vega Prime!" "What's the status of the tower's defenses?" Harlan demanded. "They're still under command lock." The officer replied, panicked. "He's spoofed their override systems. Every code input gets denied as if we don't have authority." Kiros leaned over the console, voice low. "This isn't hacking. This is warfare. He's hijacking our own hierarchy against us. We trained men to operate in shadows. Now we're being hunted by our own creation." As the phantom ship neared the upper docking platform of the tower, dozens of turret arms rotated and aimed directly at it. Alarms screamed across the comm lines. Personnel inside the tower scrambled. Auto-defense AI struggled to reconcile the conflicting signals. Was this vessel friendly? Enemy? Registered? By the time it decided, the ship had already landed. The man rose from his seat and locked his helmet in place, sleek, black, and scarred from years of use. Not military issue anymore, no insignia, just function. His boots hit the floor with a dead echo as he stepped into the main corridor. Echo's presence flickered across his visor, a ghostly outline of a woman in a tactical rig. 17 hostiles in the upper docking bay," she whispered. 4 drones, 13 guards. They're armed but confused, still trying to figure out what's real. Then let's give them something to fear." The airlock hissed open. Smoke billowed as he stepped onto the deck. Before the guards could shout, the first 2 dropped, non-lethal shots to the head. Precision strikes. He moved like a shadow, not stopping, not hesitating. One of the drones fired, missed. Echo surged through the ship's wireless systems, frying its optics mid-blast. He dropped it with a burst to the core. The guards panicked. They'd expected a firefight, not a Spectre with perfect aim and no wasted movement. They broke ranks, shouting orders, but it was too late. He didn't kill them. Didn't have to. Fear was a better weapon than a bullet. Within 60 seconds, the platform was his. He moved deeper into the station, Echo guiding him. They bypassed biometric locks, retinal scans, firewall codes designed to take days to break. She laughed at them, corrupting everything with a flick of her artificial will. Soon he reached the central core. A massive cylinder of machinery hummed with power, bathing the room in pale blue. This was it, the nerve center. Once he plugged in the payload, there would be no turning back. The virus would replicate in seconds. Systems would collapse, data would leak, and every truth the Empire tried to bury would flood the stars. He took the chip from his belt pouch. It was old, hand-built, not Federation-made, not Empire-authorized. The last act of a dying commander on a burned world, embedded with their final logs, their pain, and their truth. He slid it into the terminal. Nothing dramatic happened. No explosions, no power surge, just silence. And then Echo spoke. "It's done. Message replication has begun. System broadcast engaged. First wave of transmission will hit the fleet in 60 seconds. On the bridge of the Dominatus, every screen went black. Then they lit up. Footage, images, screams. Earth cities burning under orbital bombardment. Civilians executed during pacification drills. Old audio logs from commanders who'd been ordered to wipe entire colonies for disobedience. Faces of those who resisted and were silenced. And over it all, one voice. His voice. This is the truth your empire buried. These are the lives you erased. We are the ghosts you made, and now we're the reckoning you deserve. Vega Prime fell into chaos. Military command fractured, civilian protests erupted. Dozens of border colonies went dark, choosing to sever ties from the Empire rather than answer for its crimes. And Harlan? He stood on the bridge, watching it unfold, knowing the worst had just begun. The Phantom hadn't come to destroy the Empire, he came to unmake it. Smoke drifted in lazy curls from shattered control panels inside Vega Prime's broadcast core. The man stood still, helmet off now, sweat streaking the dust on his face. Echo's holographic outline pulsed beside him, flickering as if straining to stay materialized. "It's spreading faster than predicted," she said quietly. 73 systems are showing transmission spikes. Civil unrest already logged in 21 of them. 6 naval fleets have entered lockdown. The man's eyes stayed on the main display, now fractured and burned, still blinking out corrupted imperial insignias. The broadcast was no longer a virus. It had become a firestorm. Each bit of data he'd unearthed from dead servers, each stolen log, had been sent to every connected system. The Empire's lies didn't just unravel, they exploded. Echo's voice dropped. "We have company." He turned. Bootfalls echoed in the corridor. Heavy, disciplined, military. He picked up his rifle, calmly checking the charge. "You get me a path?" "Through the sub-reactor maintenance tunnels. But it's unstable. One wrong step. I'll take it." The door hissed open before she could respond. 6 black-armored Imperial Marines stormed the broadcast chamber, weapons leveled. For a second, no one moved. Then the first Marine recognized him, not by name, but by something in his eyes. "Drop your weapon!" The lead barked, but there was doubt in his voice. The man didn't move. "How many of you were born after the Earth War?" Confused silence. "Thought so," he muttered. The lights flickered. Then he was gone, diving behind a support beam as plasma fire lit the room. The blast of weapons was deafening, burning holes in walls, melting exposed pipes. He fired back once, low and precise. One Marine screamed. The rest scattered, breaking formation. Echo's voice rang out through the comms of the remaining soldiers, hijacking their feeds. "Ever wonder what happened to your predecessors, the ones who told you Earth was nothing but a failed colony?" The voice made one Marine drop his rifle in shock. The man used the chaos, slipping out through a maintenance door and disappearing into the guts of the station. Every bolt of metal echoed under his boots. Every pipe hissed like a dying lung. The tunnel was built for droids, not men, and jagged machinery scraped his armor as he crawled through. "I've rerouted power from the reactor core," Echo said. "They'll have to send in maintenance bots if they want the station back online. You've got 5 minutes. After that, the backup systems will trigger a trace." He grunted. "5's more than I need." Behind him, the Empire scrambled. Broadcasts shut down, technicians wiped feeds, and governors issued blanket denials. But it was too late. The data had already burrowed into private comms, civilian networks, underground channels. The truth was a living thing now. Back aboard the Dominatus, Harlan stood stiff as another screen displayed mass unrest in the core systems. Protests, fleet mutinies, regional commanders going dark. Kairos watched from the shadows, arms crossed. He didn't come to die. Harlan turned, jaw tight. What? Kairos nodded toward the main display. You thought this was a suicide mission. We all did. But he's not dying for Earth. He's breaking us. Harlan exhaled, deep and bitter. You think it's just one man? No, Kairos said. I think he's the first. Inside the underbelly of the comm tower, the man finally reached the vent chute leading to an old docking port. Echo flared to life beside him. I've rerouted a cargo hauler to the platform. No AI, manual override only. You've got about 2 minutes before they realize what I did. He climbed through the chute, bruised and breathless, then dropped onto the dark platform. Sure enough, an old hauler sat humming, engine barely warm. Not sleek, not fast, but just enough to vanish in the chaos. Before he boarded, he looked back at the tower one last time, not in pride, in memory. You did good, Echo said, quiet for once. They're going to hunt us. Yes, she replied, but they'll never trust each other again. He smirked, blood running from a cut above his brow. Good. Then the hauler engines roared, and he vanished into the night. The Empire was still intact, still armed, still terrifying, but it was no longer united. Because now, every soldier, every citizen, every system had to ask the same question. What else did they lie about? And out there in the dark, a ghost kept moving, waiting for the next tower to fall. The hauler creaked and groaned as it tore through lower orbit, rattling like it was made of bones and duct tape. Nothing about the vessel was elegant, its hull dented, engines whining, panels blinking out of sync. But that was the point. It looked like trash, useless, invisible, perfect cover for a ghost. The man leaned against the bulkhead, breath finally slowing, adrenaline cooling into a dull ache in his muscles. His armor was scorched in places, the shoulder plate cracked from a ricochet. But he was alive. Again. And the Empire? Shaking. Echo hovered beside him, glitching slightly as she recalibrated after the last data surge. Her usual calm voice was frayed at the edges. We have 30 minutes before patrols close this route. You'll need to vanish in the drift lanes. I know a place, he murmured. Old refueling station in the Kouros belt. Still off the charts. I used to stash hardware there. I'll mark the navigation. But... He looked up. But what? The message isn't done spreading. He raised an eyebrow. I don't just mean the virus. I mean the aftermath. Commanders are disappearing. Whole fleets have gone dark. There's whispers about Earth, about survivors. He sat up straighter. Anyone saying names? Echo's voice turned quiet. Yes, yours. His hands tightened on the edge of the bench. No name had passed his lips in years. It was safer that way. No records, no trail, just the myth, the message, and the vengeance. But if people were speaking it now, that meant the myth had become something more, a symbol. Aboard the Dominatus, panic had turned to rage. Harlan stood in the war chamber, watching reports flood in from system governors, most demanding answers, some begging for help. Civilian riots in the Aquarian cluster, an entire battalion on Aria 4 refusing orders until they had proof Earth was dead. Kairos dropped a fresh report onto the holotable. Rebel activity's up, tenfold. They're not disorganized anymore. They're rallying around this figure, the one who hit Vega Prime. Harlan stared. A ghost? No, Koiros said darkly. A soldier. They're calling him the Last Flame, saying he's proof Earth didn't go quietly. Harlan shook his head. The problem isn't that he hit us. It's that we let Earth fade into myth. Now that myth is turning into fuel, and there's no firewall for belief. The man was silent as Echo replayed intercepted transmissions. Some were whispers in dark alleys, others open declarations over pirate networks and outlaw comms. He walked into the heart of Vega Prime and left it burning. He's not dead. He's waiting. And he's not alone. If he could do that with one ship, imagine what a fleet of ghosts could do. He looked down at his hands, scarred, burned, still shaking. They think I'm building an army, he muttered. You could, Echo offered. There are others out there, survivors, dissidents, soldiers who saw too much and never came back. Some still fight in shadows, some wait. All they need is a reason. He didn't respond. The idea of leading, he wasn't a general, he wasn't a politician. He was just a man who buried too many friends and never got the chance to scream. But maybe that was what made it work. He didn't want power, just truth. And vengeance. And now people were listening. In a classified black site orbiting the imperial capital, a meeting took place behind armored doors. 8 chairs, 8 admirals. One High Inquisitor in crimson armor stood at the head of the table. The signal has reached every system, she said, voice like a blade. He's unmasked us, and the Empire cannot afford doubt. One admiral spoke. We'll deny it. Frame it as terrorist propaganda. Arrest the loudest rebels. Purge the infected channels. She shook her head. Too late. The data was embedded in personal comm logs. It felt real. Was real. People believe it because they lived it. Another admiral asked, Then what's the solution? She looked around the room. We kill the myth. We make the Last Flame a corpse. In the hauler, the man stared out the viewport, stars crawling past like old scars in the void. You think they'll come after me directly? He asked. Echo didn't answer immediately. Then, they'll send monsters, commanders who still believe, agents who kill the truth before it spreads. They'll come for your name, your memory, your ashes. Good, he said, eyes still locked on the stars. Let them come. He closed his eyes and breathed slow, deep. He wasn't done, not even close. There were more towers to burn, more ghosts to wake, more lies to tear apart. The Kuros Belt was a graveyard of rusted steel, forgotten satellites, and shattered hulls drifting like bones through black water. Navigating it took patience, memory, and a healthy dose of self-loathing, qualities the man had in spades. He knew this place like the inside of his scarred palms. The hauler slid into an old mining outpost clinging to an asteroid surface like a parasite. No lights, no signals, no signatures. Just a locked dock and dead air. Perfect. He set the ship down, armored up, and stepped out. The hangar hissed open with a reluctant groan. Dust puffed into the vacuum, undisturbed for over a decade. Even Echo's sensors struggled to map the layout. Everything here had been stripped or rotted. But deep inside, under layers of scrap and collapsed corridors, was a vault. A place he hadn't seen since before the siege, before the betrayal. His fingers hovered over the old keypad. A 6-digit code. Muscle memory tapped it in before he even thought. The lock clicked. Inside were crates. Not full of weapons, those had long been scavenged, but data cores, old armor pieces, and one thing that made him stop and stare. A sealed cryo case. He wiped the dust away. Lieutenant Carver. The name hit like a punch. His old spotter, the last one to fall before the blackout. They'd kept his body frozen for identification, but extraction never came. He slid to one knee and touched the case. I told you I'd come back. he muttered. Echo's voice broke the moment. You need to hear this. Across the Empire, a different kind of war had begun. Not with fleets, not with bombs, with silence. Imperial agents were disappearing. Some defected, some stopped answering. Entire spy networks went dark. Rebel channels grew louder, and in the voids between power, stories bloomed like mold. Stories of a man who walked into Vega Prime with nothing but a broken ship and a dead crew behind him, and came out with an entire system watching. They called him the Last Flame, the one spark they couldn't stamp out, and now they wanted to find him, to follow him. Harlan stood in the command room, grim-faced as more reports bled across the screens. Fleet 5 has turned, declared independence, says they won't answer to a regime that slaughters truth. Kiros looked tired. Then we send Fleet 7. We do that, we lose the perimeter systems. Then let them go. Harlan turned, surprised. Since when do you advocate surrender? Kiros looked through the viewport, his voice low. I was part of the team that greenlit the Earth Purge. I sat in a warm room and watched a world burn on hollow screens. I told myself it was necessary. He faced Harlan now, voice like stone. But we didn't end a war. We made a martyr. We made him. Back at the outpost, the man stared at the data cores. Tactical logs, comms footage, orders scrubbed from existence. He turned to Echo. If I sent everything in these crates, to 10 systems, they'd burn, she answered. You'd break the Empire's spine. He nodded slowly, jaw clenched. Then we build another ship, not for stealth, for war. Echo flickered, studying him. You're not running anymore. No, he said, eyes dead cold. I'm hunting. He opened another crate. Inside was an old patch, tattered, charred. Earth Defense Unit 9. He strapped it to his chest plate. Let's give them a reason to be afraid of the dark again. Far across space, in a war room hidden beneath an Imperial capital moon, the Inquisitor reviewed surveillance footage from Vega Prime, the moment his ship landed, the seconds before the message started. She paused the frame on his face. Eyes hardened by grief, voice filled with ghosts. She turned to her second-in-command. Find him. I want him alive. Alive? He blinked. You said you wanted the myth dead. She smiled, thin and cruel. To kill a myth, you must drag it into the light first. But in the Kuros belt, where light died and lies couldn't breathe, a warship was being born. Old parts, stolen code, human fury. And when it flew, it wouldn't carry a name. Only a message. You should have finished the job. The warship emerged from the Kuros belt like something torn from a grave and welded back together with vengeance. Black plating cannibalized from Imperial wrecks, reinforced with retrofitted Earth defense hulls and pulsing with a stolen core from a forgotten Federation cruiser. It didn't look sleek, it looked angry, and it had no name painted on its side. Just a message, etched in old Terran script, scorched into the hull. You should have finished the job. He stood on the bridge alone, staring out at the void through a cracked visor. Echo's hologram flickered beside him, her frame steady now, sharper than before, upgraded from raw code into something more whole, more human. She had grown, just like the war they were building. Signal reports coming in, she said, almost gently. Systems are falling out of alignment. Empire's command net is unraveling. Officers are defecting faster than they can be replaced. He nodded once, slow. The lies are finally collapsing under their own weight. She didn't answer right away. There's something else. He turned toward her. They found a survivor, she said. From Earth, not a soldier, a civilian, been in hiding for decades, one of the colony children. They've taken her. His breath stopped for a second. Where? Interrogation cell on Lyric Station. Imperial intelligence outpost, off-grid. No civilian traffic. It's a black site. He clenched his fists. They're trying to bait me. Yes, Echo said, but she's still real. That was enough. He keyed the engines. Lyric Station was a ghost fortress on the edge of deep space. Nothing visible on nav charts, no official designation, just cold steel and darker intentions. Inside, the Inquisitor stood behind a reinforced glass wall, staring into the dimly lit holding cell. The girl inside, barely 20, sat still, back straight, eyes defiant. Her file said she was born in a subarc after the orbital siege, hidden by a rogue unit that fled the culling. She shouldn't have survived, but she had. And now, she was bait. The Inquisitor turned as her second-in-command entered. He's coming, as we planned. Will the trap hold? The Inquisitor smiled faintly. He's a soldier. Soldiers always return for their own. The last flame didn't come with an army. He came with wrath. The warship broke through Lyric Station's perimeter like a sledgehammer through glass. Alarms howled across every corridor. Defense turrets spun, fired, missed. Echo slipped between firewalls like silk through fingers, blinding their systems, opening airlocks at the worst moments. He didn't slow down. He landed on the outer pad and walked straight into the belly of the beast, rifle low, shoulders squared. The first squad that met him didn't even get a shot off. The second managed 2 bursts before their lights went out forever. He cut through layers of steel and men, moving like a wraith. Not a hero, not a savior, just the consequence. In the cell, the girl sat still as the walls shook with distant explosions. The guards ran. Screams echoed. Then silence. The door opened. She looked up and saw the man. The helmet, the rifle, the patch on his chest. "Are you real?" she asked, voice shaking. He nodded once. "You were never forgotten." He led her out through fire and steel, the station collapsing behind them. Echo guided their path, shielding their route from the Inquisitor's last wave of drones. They didn't talk. There was no need. When they reached the ship, she paused and looked at it. "This is yours?" she asked. He looked at her. "It's ours now." The Empire didn't fall that day, but it broke. News of Lyric Station's destruction spread fast, faster than the Empire could stop it. The footage leaked. The survivor spoke. The last flame had a face now, and hope had a name again. Rebellions turned to coalitions, fragments turned to fleets. The man who wasn't supposed to exist now carried more power in rumor than any admiral could command in steel. 1 week later, a message played across 100 systems. His voice, low, steady, unshaken. "You tried to erase us. You failed. You turned Earth into ash, and from it we rose. We are the scars you left behind, and we are done hiding. This isn't a war for territory. It's a reckoning." In a silent room deep in the capital, the Inquisitor watched the message, hands folded behind her back. "He wants war," her aide said. "No," she replied softly. "He wants truth. But truth always ends in blood." And out there, beyond the fractured stars, the last flame stared into the void from his ship's bridge. Still scarred, still burning, but no longer alone. And the Empire would never sleep again.